at the price level. This is well worth the money using Oluv's EQs. You said, ow, and I said, what? And you said, what on earth was that? And I said, that was my UBOOML review.
UBOOM.
All hell broke loose. I had to take 6 months off, but do you know what? I did recover. You said I wouldn't. You said you'd never be the same again. You may be right, actually, but I am back 2 years later. Well, let me just tell you something. After I did my Earfun UboomXXX review, it was a serious, the piston's going early. It was a genuine review. And after that Earfun UboomXXX review, I never heard from Earfun again. And actually, I thought, thank God for that. And then, do you know what happened a couple of weeks ago? I heard from Earfun again. And they said, "Ow," and I said, "What?" And they said, "Would you like to review the UBOOMX?" And I thought, And I said, not my X. They said, no, the UBOOMX. And I said, well, that's all right then. And then I thought, and I thought, well, curiosity killed the cat. Also got the better of me. I had seen early reviews out there. We won't go into that. But it left me none the wiser. I don't think I was alone. And I said, yes, I would be very interested in reviewing what appears to be quite an interesting speaker. Why is it interesting out? Well, do you remember Mr. Oluv's gadgets? No longer, of course, of Oluv's gadgets, because we don't know why. He doesn't know why, but apparently is gone. If you want to get hold of Oluv now, or Olaf, if you want to get hold of him now, you'll have to use his Patreon. Oluv's One, it is now called. This was tuned by Mr. Oluv, formerly Oluv's Gadgets. Now got app support, so you can go through the different. This is the problem. They ask him to tune a speaker, and then they're not quite sure, and then they flip and flop, and it becomes a nightmare. For me, that was a nightmare. Not for everybody. Liked by a lot of people who like a bit of a more neutral, they say, sound, but you had to do manual updates because they replaced this firmware and all that. If you don't know, it's a long story. Go back over the headlines and you'll find out. But yeah, so now I got it. So they never said to me how, and I never said what, and they never said it's got the app support. Would you like to try it? And I never said anything because they never asked me again. Not alone, almost nobody, including Tribit. It's all gone quiet on the Tribit front, I must say. There's something about me. They don't like it up at Mr. Mandarin. I've done that before. I know most of you will have no idea what that means. They don't like it up at Mr. Mandarin, and they don't like dealing with me. You may or may not believe this, but I have been emailing back and forth with Oluv, or Olaf. I never do quite understand why there's different names, but however, you probably know him as Oluv. It's been very pleasant. There's no issues, and it looks like we are proper friends now. But, as always, I am doing this unaided. So just know this is my vision, and just to prove why this is my vision of how you review a speaker, it's because this has come with firmware 0.38 on the app. I will always believe in reviewing. If I'm going to review a speaker, it's going to be what you're going to pick up day one you buy it. And that's one of the reasons why all hell broke loose, whatever, when I reviewed that, because I reviewed public release firmware rather than what people were saying would be the best firmware. It's like EQs, guys. I'm just going to say, mates. Listen, mates, it's like all EQs. Everybody has a different idea of what is best. And therefore, I want to go with what people are paying money for. And if they want to swap around after that, that's fine. Why are you saying that? I know. And this is the problem. It's going to be another 20-minute intro when I just wanted to get straight into it. That's what she said! Right. Came up in the app 0.38. Oluv is telling me that there's a firmware 0.39 that fixes some of the issues, or all the issues, I don't know, of the speaker. What does he say those issues are? He says some of the distortion some people are talking about that he also hears is fixed in 0.39. I've also had issues that are possibly fixed in 0.39. But I asked Earfun what will be the release firmware, and they said 0.38 with no time frame for when we're going to get 0.39. You'd think they would just load it into the app, wouldn't you? I don't know how all this works, but I'm going with 0.38 for my first review. Just going to put that out there. That's already controversial. Oluv says 0.39 is the firmware to go with, and indeed he has a 0.39 that also includes another custom EQ on his Patreon. If you're interested in the speaker and interested in getting the best firmware for it, and indeed the best firmware from the guy who's actually taken the time to tune this, and I'm just going to say this before I forget, because I haven't got this in my notes or anything. I think he spent like 2-3 months tuning this speaker, and apparently this is what I'm told. You may or may not think this is a joke. He spent like 3 months tuning it. Earfun's software engineer, or whoever the geezer is that does it, for all I know, he's the bloke down the road that they asked around for 5 minutes, apparently took 2 hours. Having heard it in default, that does sound like it probably was the case. We'll get on to that. Right, just quickly give you the overview of this UBOOM X. Now, discounts everywhere. You should know. Oluv tuned this. Well, they must have paid him 50 million quid. They didn't pay him 50 million quid. As far as I know, they haven't paid him anything at this point. As far as I know, the deal is you've got to buy through his link for him to get anything. 3 months to tune it, you've got to buy through his link to tune it. Well, that's all right. They must be putting his link everywhere. No, they're putting their link everywhere, including in the app. I haven't got my phone here. I'm going to get my phone. When you turn on the app, there's a really, really annoying advert. Again, circumventing any chance he has of making sales. Guys, if you... Plus, they offered me a fantastic deal. Yes, Piston is justified. Why is that out? Well, because someone was getting it right up them. And who was that? Well, I'll give you a clue. The deal is you go through his link, and how does he tempt you to go through his link? Well, he's got a 30% off early bird coupon. I don't know when this is coming out. It's probably after the coupon's expired. I don't know. Links will be in the description. I'm going to put Oliv's links if I can, not mine. They offered me 25% early bird discount, a special deal for my subscribers. And if I love my subscribers, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to put the 25% there. Do you know why? Because he only gets paid, but he's got a 30% coupon. And on their own website, Earfun are competing with both Oluv and myself with a 30% coupon. Who's kidding who here? That is ridiculous. Mr. Earfun, whoever you are, that is absolutely ridiculous. That's taking the mickey, quite honestly. I had a follow-up, tempt me to tempt you. It's, because I'm trying to establish what is going to be the street price. To review any speaker, it's going to be at the price level. They're telling me now in the UK, £112 will be street price after a permanent coupon on Amazon, I think. And then they give me another, and they said, here's a 5% further tempter. That, if that's right, I don't know if it's with the 5% that will bring it down to 112, or that's another £5 off or something at 110. So let's say about 110 quid street price, $150 or something like that. So I don't know if he's going to get that coupon, and we're all competing with Earfun either. But here's the point: he's tuned it. Come on, pay the guy. He only gets for sales. And I said, and now they've got their own advert that comes up. 25% where I know you're going to get 30. I'm not going to tell you 25%, but I know you're going to get a better deal anyway. Anyway, that doesn't start off on a good level with anybody. Right, it's all about the speaker. I will tell you right now, because I know you're not, anyway, I just want to know about the speaker. At the price level, this is well worth the money using Oliv's EQs. Default EQ is absolutely rubbish. Oliv's EQs are pretty good, but obviously it's his EQ, and everyone wants to tinker it a bit. And again, I have to show you the app because you can't even use their custom. It's a nightmare. The app's a nightmare, especially I'm on Android. I think they've only ever tested it on iOS or something on Apple, but Android it's been a nightmare. However, the speaker can be enjoyable. Indeed, I'm going to get onto that. There's your disclaimer. I never do that early in the review. Think of it as a mini boombox. It's not light. It might look light. This is coming in at just over 4 kilo, which compares to the Soundcore Boom 2 Plus, which is 3.7 kilos. Stormbox Blast 5.5 kilos. I think they're probably the two that you will most likely compare this to. I think it will come off quite well if you understand how to use the speaker. And unfortunately, it's quite complicated. And it's going to require some brain cells. Don't insult your subscribers, and therefore I won't do the follow-up joke that I had got ready in my head. I'm going to tell you the speaker. Shall I give you the speaker? Well, I'll just tell you what I don't like. It's ridiculous. I don't know if I can get the light to show you here, but when you've got a light anywhere hovering around it, it automatically creates a shadow over the controls that are already hard to see. We've got the lovely, well done, Earfun, all in black. Very hard to see. By the way, the pairing button for multiple speakers, you can pair up, you can do TWS and you can pair up to 50 other speakers. Are you going to buy 50? You're not. Why does it support 50? I don't know. It looks amazingly like the Tribit logo. I don't know if you can see that there, but it's like a triangle with 3 things at the end. I don't know. Yeah, so we can control the lights. I'll turn the speaker on. I like that at least it's a 1 click and not like the Soundcore thing. You gotta hold it down for 40 minutes and all that to come on. So we can control the lights on the thing itself and go through the patterns. Has it got lights? Yes. Some people don't like lights. Some people do and they're never happy. Do you know my issue with these lights is, of course, the bar, the thing that's holding the LEDs to shine, it's right over the woofers. Do you notice a major issue when you cover woofers right that close up? Anyway, it's called diffraction, by the way. They have to EQ around it, of course. So we've got the volume up, volume down, play, pause, or multi-function button there. It's all rubberized. We've got our Bluetooth light there and the power on and off. Appears to be no volume indicator on this. If I do it on the thing itself, then the lights come on. That appear to be the battery level, because I can go all the way down. By the way, there is no indication of when you're at minimum and maximum volume. As you can see, I don't know. I'd have to go to my phone to see it. Is that an issue? Yeah, because I found there's times where this isn't properly synced with my phone's device. Is it my phone's fault? I don't know. But I don't get that with my other speakers. So there's occasionally been speakers. There's W King comes to mind where it flip-flops between being synced, sunk, or not. And then you, just to make sure yours at maximum volume, you have to do that. Some people like that because, of course, it has its own internal limiters that work on the basis of what volume it thinks it's at. And so you can adjust the level of bass on it itself. So the headlines are, think of it as a mini boombox. There's no multi-point support. No multi-point support. It's got a nice old battery at 60 watt hours, which is more than the 55 watt hours of the Soundcore Boom Plus, but not as good as the 71 watt hours of the Tribit Stormbox Blast. Now, I said they do their testing, don't they, on iOS? Clearly, because it defaults to AAC. Does have SBC, but you have to physically go into your settings to change it to SBC. We all know AAC is not optimal on Android. It's just the way it is. Not only is it's flunky in use, but even the way the codec works on Android is not. And of course, it depends on your phone. Well, this is something it never gets talked about. Of course, audio does change. They will handle these codecs a little bit different on all these different phones. Never mind the different operating systems. I'm using my, well outdated because my pockets are empty, mate. Samsung S10 Plus. Other phones will handle some of these, the audio differently, especially in the high end where they will, where they cut off and stuff like that. There's something that nobody even does dual Android and iOS testing, let alone different devices. Not going to happen in the Bluetooth. Might happen if it was high end world, where the money is and the sponsorships are. I've got a notification. Just a clue. Just to remind you. Unsponsored, unpaid. I told you the inducements they gave me, which weren't inducements at all. I don't use inducements. I don't like using that. I'll always use my own Amazon links, blah, 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 even when they're asking me to use links and I've got all that. But unless you get a deal out of it. But I don't deal with many people at all, as you can see. Just to say, you'll have your watts. So it's an 80 watt speaker. I want to quickly show you that. We'll get to anything else I thought of at the end. So you fire up that, first thing you get is subscribe now, blah, blah, blah. Early bird. Is it Oluv's? No. Who else is going to work with Earfun when they do things like this? It's 3 months to EQ it. And you only get paid if you go through his link. And then the whole world is saying, use this link, and it's not his link. So we go into the Earfun Uboom X. So we've got your play, your fast forward, your backwards and all that, blah, 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 blah. You can you change the name? No, you can't change the name. So why tell me the name? I don't know. Video. So video mode will apparently reduce the latency that you're going to get in normal audio mode, but we'll get onto that at the end. It's not hugely different, but anyway. So the equalizer. So this is the big deal. The equalizer. Where to start? If you come at this as someone who never watches YouTube, I mean, you're just going to be overwhelmed. So you go in, there's default. Oh, that's great, and it's not great. And then you go through the EQs, bass boost up there, and up there. So you think, oh, I'm on treble reducer now. Well, you're not. Why is that out? Well, I've now got a place where it says apply current. I thought that's something I do to a battery. Why is there 2 clicks? I go through the 30 EQs or whatever is there, and then I hit no. I've got there apply current. I can't imagine some programmer sitting there and saying, there we are, select, and now that's selected, but we'll make them press another button that's, we've got all singing, dancing, lovely logos and pictures on our on the EQs, and we've got this little button, one says apply current. And then you look down there, and then it says, oh, now it's got a custom EQ, and going to custom EQ. You will see that all their so-called specific EQs for specific scenarios are based on the EQ of flat. It's not actually flat, but relative to default flat, and then it just shows you there. And you can EQ on top of that yourself, and you can save that. And that's great. And then you scroll down, oh, Oluv. Well, who's that? Do you know what? Why you'd say that? Because it's not on the box. It's in the promo on their website, but it's not on the box. Oh, no, it's Oluv, known as Oluv's one, so they've got his new name, but they don't say it's Patreon. You may go looking for him on YouTube. Do you know what happened? You won't find him. Born in the European capital, right? It tells you about him. And then you've got some more EQs. Well, you've probably spent 4 days going through the top ones. I don't even know who's going to end up coming down to Oluv's signature. And why does it say Oluv's signature there when actually you've got to select ones down there? It makes no sense. Makes no sense. I don't know. Honestly, you know, people have had to design this. I don't know. It doesn't tell me that it's down there. I'm thinking that's Oluv's signature. I click on it, nothing happens. Okay, so now I've got to go to click to select his EQs. So I go studio, and now I get a tick. Why does his EQs work completely different to the default EQs? I mean, it's like a 4-year-old's designed this. There's absolutely no gel between it. It's like his has been added on by someone else after this app has been designed. You can click, so to select his EQs, I just tick 1, 1, 1. That's how it should be. I go to their EQs, I got to slide through them and then say apply current for it to be on. And then it says present, and then I'm on those EQs. So I pick out one of his EQs. It doesn't tell me about, I thought it did in the app. So you'd have to go and search out what each EQ does. I will tell you, he's done this from most balanced or lightest EQ to the heaviest. Anyone who doesn't really understand this probably never even going to go down here. There's another problem, is that all these volume curves are different from default. So anyone, we all know, you switch from one to the other, and you just, one's very quiet, you just go back to the other. We've seen it happen. We've seen this on YouTube, haven't we? They just flick to another one, it's quieter, and they go back to the other one. They don't bother loudness matching them. So that, just know the loudness curves. Why does that matter? Well, it depends, depending on how the curve is, it gives you more control at certain volumes. So it's ridiculous. Now, it's not crashing. I was hoping it would crash for me now. I'm not hoping it would crash, but it's now proving to be stable. Maybe it's because I'm not playing music. When I've been doing this in my testing, it's been driving me absolutely crazy. It's not crashing now, but I tell you, it's been crashing for me all the time. And when it crashes, what it does, it goes back to the home screen, like that, what I call the home screen, and then the volumes are out of sync again. So it goes down to like 70% or something, and I've got to come back and make sure. So every time I do an EQ, I've got to press to make sure, because otherwise it's not proper test. I'm loudness matching them. Hit that. So that's basically the overview of the app. It didn't crash there, but it's been crashing for me every time. There's nothing else there, just to say you lighting effects there, lighting effects in the app, a voice prompt setting. I don't even know what that is. Oh, I suppose, is that just the sounds it makes? I don't know, got no idea. Shutdown, you can adjust the shutdown, tutorial frequency, and then the version. So 0.38. I'm being told. So you think, oh, well, there's only one firmware difference. Oliver's telling me that every time they did another tinkering in the firmware, they never changed the number. So you've got no idea when you get this how many firmwares. It appears from the issues I've described to Oluv, he thinks this is many firmwares below. This is something someone would be buying. That's why it's a fair test and why I want to test it like this. So, got all those presets. You don't have to, doesn't tell me in the app unless it's somewhere else. As you saw, I just tried to click. It doesn't explain those at all. You'd have to search out what they do. I'm going to show you what they do for me. Again, I'm going to have to put out a disclaimer that the way they are working for me is not as Oluv describes them. Some of them, a couple of them I get onto, appear to be reversed. He says they're fixed in later firmware. This is why they've been screaming at me. Not screaming at me, been asking me, both Earfun and Oluv, to do 0.39. It's against everything I believe in. I'm going to have to stick to my guns. This is a speaker I would have bought. It would have been delivered to me. This is a production model. And so I want to test what you're likely to get. I asked them if 0.39 is coming anytime soon. There is no time frame for that. And this is coming out in like 3 days as I sit here, or 2 days. Or Saturday. It's coming out on Monday, 2 days. So here are, right, we'll go through default, what they call default. Maybe it should just be called fault, and all the other presets. For me, on my version, on my firmware version, which you'll probably get, or may get, I don't know, until we get 0.39, this is what it will be like for you, but it's not exactly how Oluv intended it. You should know that now. So loudness match, default versus indoor plus being what I would think of as should be default on this speaker. Very, very different, not just in the response, but also in the volume scales. 55% default is 75 but indoor plus, not because there's more headroom on default, but because the volume curves are very different. Way more bass overall for indoor plus, a tad more mid bass on default. You're paying for that with a loss of mids and upper bass. You get a peak around 3 kilohertz and then a dip at the high end. It's actually quite weird. So in terms of what's more accurate, that is a big peak at 3 kilohertz. That is where we are really, really sensitive, followed by a dip. That is not going to work well in the real world. The dip in the upper bass is a real upper bass loss. And overall, you can see indoor plus Slightly boosted in the upper bass, but overall pretty accurate to the original track and clearly an improvement over the default EQ on UBOOMX. For me, indoor is actually bass light. This is another example of modes not as described to me, and possibly down to my speaker being an early firmware. So for me, Indoor Plus is actually quite balanced. It's not a bass boost as described to me. An indoor mode is actually bass light and not balanced as described to me. And this is why I prefer Indoor Plus. Also, when loudness matched, Indoor Plus does not have a high-end boost as described to me. Outdoor mode, well, you can clearly see it's really heavily now V-shaped with a big massive boost in the bass, all of the bass, upper bass, mid bass, deep bass. Got a bigger kick at the high end, and it's an outdoor mode and it's going to give you more kick. Outdoor versus Outdoor Plus. Well, it's not just another boost like we had for going indoor to Indoor Plus. It's much more sculpted than that. So to eke out more bass, which we've got in terms of mid bass, deep bass on Outdoor Plus, it's costing you upper bass. It's costing you upper bass and lower mids. And it's got another kick at the high end, so even more V-shaped than we had on Outdoor mode. It does what it says on the box. It's an Outdoor Plus. I've clearly got issues in the way my speaker has given me Boom X, and Ground Zero doesn't really tally with how Oluv describes how they should be. And indeed, he confirmed some of the early firmwares did have issues between these two modes. Keep in mind, when I show you these modes, further firmwares down the line will probably change these outcomes. For me, Boom X is not a big bass boost. In fact, it's probably more in line with the outdoor mode, because it's like a mild version of Outdoor Plus. The only thing I could say is, well, you're getting more upper bass and lower mids. It's filling out that area. You could almost say it's more balanced. And then we go from Boom X to Ground Zero, where by all descriptions, we should have a big peak at the end for Ground Zero. We don't. And the real difference when loudness matched is we've got more bass for Ground Zero. It looks to me like not only are these not exactly how they were intended to sound, they're reversed. But look at how they are before I have done the final bit of normalizing. You can see in the real world, it's just really going a bit louder Ground Zero, because when you loudness match them, all you got really is the bass boost. When you properly loudness match Oluv's EQs to, I don't know, Oluv, tell me, do you want me to call you Oluv or Oluv? I don't know. It must be Oluv, because even on Patreon, it's Oluv's one. What are you saying now? I completely forgot. Right, yeah. So how he describes them to me. So first of all, I will say, for me, I would have made Indoor Plus default EQ, and I flip-flop between Indoor Plus and Outdoor as my favoured EQs at normal listening volumes. And when I'm listening at lower volumes, I like going through studio and indoor. They are much milder and calmer. So some of these are quite bass heavy or very bass heavy. You've got something there for everybody, let's say. It's a shame we can't EQ on top of them. Right, studio mode, he says, is without any dynamic EQ or stereo enhancing. So you should know, there's some very noticeable stereo enhancing going on with this speaker. I don't particularly ever like stereo enhancing. For me, you know, I always hear the holes in it rather than the psychoacoustics that it's messing with your ear to make it sound like it's not actually going wider. You should remember that. It's not going wider, it's making it sound like it's wider. Stereo enhancing is to say stereo widening. Psychoacoustics, it's about tricking your ears, which is quite easy to do. All right, which is quite easy to do. Psychoacoustics by manipulating certain frequencies and by messing around with the phasing. Studio mode has no dynamic EQ or stereo enhancing. It sounds quite pure, and for me, I quite like it, but I only like that at low volumes. As you go up in proper volumes, I want more oomph. Indoor, he says, is similar to studio with some, so he's got different levels of stereo enhancing. He's thought it through. He spent more than 2 hours on it. It's similar to studio with some stereo enhancing, some light dynamic bass and light treble boost indoor. And as you see, so this is how it goes. As you go up or down in the app on the EQs, you're getting more and more sculpting, and you're getting more and more dynamic adjustments and more in the stereo enhancing that all these speakers now seem to be coming with, and they absolutely love it, and it seems it goes down well. I don't personally like it. So Indoor Plus, it adds some extra kick to indoor, has some lower bass boost, treble is boosted a bit more, and the stereo enhancing is slightly stronger. Outdoor, it's got even more bass, more treble, but the mids are cut. but has the most overall bass. Outdoor Plus has the deepest bass boost. So there's lots of sculpting going on these different EQs. So you'll get bass in different places. Only so much headroom you can play with. JBL do this all the time. Pull down the upper bass and it makes it sound more bassy, more deep bassy. That's their signature tuning. And he's doing that with different modes that he thinks are bass for different scenarios. The clue is in some of these names. Just know for me, some of these EQs haven't worked exactly as intended. Outdoor has the deepest bass. Outdoor Plus has got the deepest bass boost at the cost of upper bass and some stereo enhancing added. UBOOMXXX. So this hasn't worked for me. How it's been described. It doesn't have the most boom, but anyway, should have the most bass. UBOOMXXX and Outdoor should be the loudest modes here, but for me, it's Outdoor Plus and UBOOMX that have most bass. For me, it's got the second most bass to Outdoor, but it may be reversed to Ground Zero. Ground Zero is for playing that way down. I'm just pointing that out. You've now got a 360-degree speaker you never paid for and actually tuned to work as a 360-degree speaker. That's what happens when you spend more than 2 hours tuning a speaker. You can think it through. So you'd expect more high-end boost, but for me, it's kind of not happening, and at some volumes. So, and I must say, with all these EQs, the differences are different at different volume steps, I guess because of the dynamic adjustments, and some are clearly not working at all as intended. For me, UBOOMX and Ground Zero appear to be reversed, and he did say it earlier firmwares that was an issue. And it's not even the last firmware. So he thinks this firmware that I've got, that you'll be getting it as well, probably, is several firmwares below where they've been tinkering with. No wonder people have been describing issues. But why send out the speakers to be reviewed when you know it's got issues? That's a problem waiting to happen, isn't it? So that's the 360 mode. I will say, he's pushed this to the absolute limit. I said, if only you could have use your own, use a custom EQ on top of yours. He'd say, he's pushed these so much you probably wouldn't want to, because then you'll just start complaining about more distortion. He says he's clearly learnt from what happened with that one. He wants something for everybody. I think he's done that within the limits of this speaker. Some of the ones that are more heavily boosted, especially the outdoor modes, quite one-notey. You can see boosted much. The passive seems to be about 50 hertz. And a lot of the boost is around that area and then sculpting elsewhere. And that's when it becomes quite notey. But outdoor, at further distances, you don't hear all those frequencies. Only certain frequencies are going to travel, blah, blah, blah. So there you go. That's how they work. For me, as the speaker I got, I quite like Indoor Plus and I like Outdoor, as boosted as it is, because it sounds quite full without sounding that over the top and that distorted or anything like that, and compares quite well with it. So did I enjoy that? Yeah. Is it the greatest speaker I've ever heard? No. But at £110 or whatever, if that's street price £110, like I said with that, it was good value, and I think that's good value. I think they know where, do seem to price quite well. If they truly land at a street price around that, that's a good buy. Is it the greatest speaker? No. But at that price point, if you're after a boombox that can also play low. So there are times and I'm close up and I don't want all that bass, and I've switched between studio and I've switched between indoor. Been quite happy. Is it perfect? No, I would have liked to EQ on top of that, but it works. And do you know what doesn't work? Default. Default is a fault, in my opinion. Is that down to the firmware? I don't know, but we'll get on to that. So the two speakers I think that you will probably want to compare it to most are. For me, the most similar speaker would be the Boom 2 Plus in terms of sound signature. Boom 2 Plus, though, weirdly, is bigger, but is indeed lighter. They do seem to be able to get these speakers quite light. We saw that with the Soundcore Motion Boom Plus and the Boom 2 Plus, quite light for what you get. Tribit Stormbox Blast, for me, it's a different kind of speaker. It talked of as a kind of boombox, but for me, EQ'd a bit neutral. It's quite hi-fi-ish. Just things that you don't see in a frequency response, just that quality of sound. So that's why I don't think that's directly compared to that. I don't think that's hi-fi-ish as such, but you can, Indoor Plus, for me, is quite flat, but I think that's probably what Indoor was intended to be. You'll have to go by your own ears. But even the design, you can see to me, that's the one to compare it to. But I'm going to compare it to the 2 because that's the ones you asked about. So big mismatch, obviously, in volume steps. Remember, I'm getting these loudness matched. That's what you'll do in the real world. You can't win. If you do them both at 50%, you say, well, one's louder than the other. And if you do one at 50 and 75% when they're loudness matched, you say, well, they're at different volume steps. Just know, if you're an honest reviewer, you cannot win. You'll never be happy. There are ways of being happy, but I can't. The YouTube algorithm will slaughter me if I. Yeah, what's that? And blah 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 blah. Where are you? On the table. Have a listen. I'm going to compare. Right. I'm going to say another disclaimer. I don't know what's going on. Seemed fine at 50%. Look, if I turn this on, it'll come on in X-Bass mode. X-Bass says it's on. When we get to the maximum volume test, X-Bass clearly wasn't engaged, even though it says it is. I've seen this before on older firmwares. I don't know why it's doing this now. There are times when it says, is it this one or I think was it the Blast? There have been Tribit speakers. It does seem to be a Tribit issue where it says it's in X-Bass mode and it goes back to like music mode or whatever they call the other mode. Seems fine when I'm doing this test. I didn't realise it did that till I'd seen my actual measurements after the loudness, which we'll get to in a minute. Just know this seems accurate, but the maximum won't be so accurate. That one against these two.
A boy who missed his home run. Boo-hoo, you can miss
For me, in most scenarios, it's going to be indoor plus and outdoor modes that you're going to use depending on your taste. Against the Boom 2 Plus, well, outdoor mode does outbass the Boom 2 Plus. They're not that dissimilar elsewhere. It's the indoor plus that has the strongest mids, and it's the outdoor that has the strongest high end. Against the Blast, the difference in bass from outdoor to the Blast is even bigger than we had against the Boom 2 Plus. So it's outbassing for sure, the Blast and the Boom 2 Plus, depending on which EQ you are using. An indoor plus remains probably the most balanced EQ against the Blast and Boom 2 Plus. For me, against the Stormbox Blast, in X bass mode, as I said, I use it in my own personal EQ, in X bass mode, this comes off as a bit smoother, a bit fuller, a bit wider, a bit sweeter. It sounds like, oh, it's completely different, but in the real world, those differences are quite small. Flip-flopping between indoor plus. I'm using only those two modes. Can't do, it's got 37 EQ. Talk about overwhelm your customers, 37 EQs. They need to make up their mind. They either want Oluv to tune a speaker or they want to tune it themselves. But it's just overwhelming. No wonder, yeah, I don't know. Let's see how it works out in the real world. But anyway, those are my two EQs. The way my speaker lands, indoor plus outdoor. The differences are quite close and you can make it fuller. And yes, there's other EQs you can go through. But for what I like about this speaker, it's that hi-fi. What's that hi-fi? I think it's when they say, you can't really describe it. It just sounds nicer to your ears. It's just the imaging, the way it just sounds more believable as an image to me than the UBOOMXXX, which is, it's a cheaper speaker, isn't it? It sounds a bit cheaper, but it doesn't sound nasty. So I want to stress the differences are not big, but I still prefer the Blast. But for reasons you may not actually like it, you may prefer that. But for me, it doesn't, the vocals don't gel quite in the way that this does. These are the hi-fi kind of things that I think about. That's what my ears say, your ears may say something different. But it's not far behind. But I don't think, it doesn't quite gel the vocals with the rest of the track. It sounds a bit thinner, it sounds a bit narrower, but you may even prefer that the way it goes, because lots of people prefer the modern Soundcore signature. I hate the modern Soundcore signature. They're obviously selling like hotcakes. So what do I know? If you like the modern Soundcore signature, this is kind of more in line with that than the Blast. So you may prefer that. Remember, but that is cheaper, and you've got lots of other options with it in terms of the EQ, blah, blah, blah. So at what I would say, my listening volumes, prefer the Blast. But there are reasons why you may not agree with me. It's not night and day. However, with the against the Boom 2 Plus, as I said, I think they're kind of more similar in how it comes over to my ears as not hi-fi-ish, as more rough and ready, if you like. I think the differences are now even closer. I still think the way the vocals are handled on that, it's probably one of its weaker points, whereas it gels more here. This is a very heavily mid-bass boosted speaker, and if you like that mid-bass push, you'll probably prefer this. But then you've got other EQs you can go through on the Earfun Uboom X. So again, it's going to come down to taste. It's quite close. This is much cheaper. It seems better value. Outdoor mode is much fuller than this sounds in its default with the bass, depending on where your ears are tuned. As I said, this has little deep bass. They say if you push it in the EQ, for me, it doesn't work. For me, it's unequable. Unequable. That's the things that you can't measure in the speaker. For me, you can't, because of its overall quality, it's unfixable. But obviously, lots of people like it. So this is about my opinion. I try to be both objective and subjective. In my subjective opinion, which is my ears, kind of prefer the Uboom, depending on the track, whether I switch between indoor plus, which may actually be indoor when you get it, indoor plus and outdoor mode. If it's competing, it's already good value, isn't it? And this is on 0.38. They say 0.39 definitely sounds better. It fixes distortion and fixes some of the other issues that I've described on my Android device, because, of course, it defaults to AAC. Where does that leave us now? Ooh, means I'm getting through the video. Thank God for that. I think that takes us to maximum volume. This has been another point of contention, hasn't it? Oh, default goes louder. As I said, first of all, just to remind you of my disclaimer, it appears, although it said X bass on my Blast, it wasn't engaged. This is something I've seen on Tribit speakers before when I actually did my testing. Although it seemed to work at 50% for some reason at maximum volume, or suddenly the limiters have kicked in where they've never kicked in before. The bass was missing that I've had previously when I've tested it, certainly against the Motion Boom, the Soundcore Boom, Motion Boom Plus, or Boom Plus as they call it now. So yeah, maximum volume. They say some people default is the loudest. It may be that they have the syncing problem that I've had, that they haven't bothered doing. Every time I do a maximum test on any speaker, always make sure your speaker is maxed out. They do sometimes come out of sync. There's people that say, "Oh, I've had a speaker come out of sync." It does happen a lot. The first time you use it, you have to sync it to 100%, and then normally after that they're always synced. Some speakers don't. It's, you know, some speakers do not. W King, known for it, do not fully sync. Some people like that it doesn't fully do that, and you've got a bit more manual control or whatever because you can adjust the bass. Some people don't. Just know that may be one reason why we're seeing reviews where their description of all isn't what the people who've actually made a speaker know should be the case, or what it happens in my testing. This is what happened to me when I did proper 100% testing. These are the 5 loudest of the EQs and the 3 different speakers. Boom 2 Plus, the green line, is indeed the overall loudest here, but it doesn't have the most bass, and it's only about half a decibel in front of the Outdoor Plus in yellow and the Boom X in white. As I said, Boom X though, and Ground Zero may be reversed on my firmware. What we can see is, to get the most out of the Boom X, Oluv has clearly had to sculpt the bass. And all 3 of his EQs here, we're missing some lower mids and eking into upper bass region. It's the Outdoor Plus that's the most V-shaped here because you can see it actually has the biggest, deepest bass, but it also has the biggest peak at the end. So it's about the sculpting on the U-Boom. It's not about overall frequency response. So in terms of who's got the deepest bass when pushed to maximum, clearly overall bass goes to Boom 2 Plus, but 60 Hertz below, Indoor Plus actually has that bottom end that's outdoing the others. Obviously, it's not going as loud as the others. It's all about the sculpting what's happening with the different EQs on the Uboom X in terms of Oluv modes, but you can get the most bass at maximum volume with Indoor Plus. At least on my firmware, I have to say, some of these EQs are not as exactly predicted. And we can see the Boom 2 Plus, as I've said before, it's all about mid-bass really. It's peaking well around 800 Hertz. And the blast then catches up as we approach 50 Hertz, but it's got a very unnatural slope to it. It should be a downward slope according to the original track on this. In terms of the mid-bass, well, that's outdoor mode. We know Boom 2 Plus is a mid-bass heavy speaker. And then as we get to the deeper terms of mid-bass, we get the Outdoor Plus. You can see Stormbox Blast way behind. Just to show you indoor modes as opposed to outdoor modes. And we throw in default. Default for UBOOMXXX. That's not a mistake down there. That's how much quieter UBOOMXXX is in its headroom compared to all the other modes. The difference between them is they've got different volume steps and it's catching a lot of people out. I'm not sure what happened with studio mode because that should have been the most balanced with the least dynamic adjustment. Something has happened obviously in my testing with this. I did retest it and I was getting studio mode as the strongest of indoor modes. As I said, bear in mind, on my firmware, on my Android device, some of these modes are not happening as predicted. But at the end of the day, this is what I get out of the box. An indoor mode gives me the most overall bass, but Indoor Plus at maximum volume gives me the deepest bass. In terms of LUFS are measured in decibels and it's relative. 0 is the loudest. 10 decibels is Outdoor Plus goes 10 decibels louder than default. So don't you tell me, is that my speaker is faulty in default or theirs? I know that I've had to be pressing the volume up to properly sync them to get full volume. I know that has been an issue. Is that because, again, lazy testing, people put it on the table and just play it, and they don't do the basic things that proper test viewers do to make sure everything is relative. For me, goes blinking loud. I get 110 decibels. That's what these big boom boxes are doing. It does go loud. I mean, the Boom 2 Plus goes loud. It is the loudest here, but not by much. What was it, about a decibel? 111 decibels in peaks. There's 1 decibel in peaks and about a decibel and a half in terms of overall volume throughout the whole track. It's not much at all, is it? It's going to come down. Imagine if they could get this down to 99 quid. If they got this down to 99 quid, this should rocket off the shelves. Because although some people will say these are better, I do prefer that, and you may get, these are more expensive, they're still quite close in price. I think if they put a bit more distance between themselves and the closest competitors, I think, to it, then it's really going to do well. I don't know what the profit margins is, but they're normally pretty big on these things. So get this down to 99 quid. Stop doing these permanent discounts. Just get the price down. Let people know how much it costs. You have to do this and that to get the price. It will sell. It will sell. And get serious with Oluv's EQs as well. And get rid of some of your nonsense EQs. Let us EQ on top of Oluv's. So, yeah, that's my review of that. I mean, as I said, what was the point? It's a firmware that's going to get quickly updated, I hope. If that doesn't get updated quickly, again, then they've been misleading me as well. I'm talking about Earfun themselves, because the first time I asked them, can you, what is going to be released firmware? It's 0.38, and we don't have a timescale yet for when 0.39 is coming. Then when I started describing some of my issues, they suddenly come in and said, "Oh, there's a firmware coming 0.39, like we'd never talked about it before," and they wanted me to manually update. They must think I'm stupid. We get this a lot. So let's see how long it takes 0.39 to come on this speaker to see whether they was trying to pull a fast one there or not. So in terms of the pricing, did I talk about that at the beginning? I don't know. 150 quid, $160 for the Blast. Why are you moving them around? I don't know. I just came and made something that didn't seem symmetrical. I don't know. £199, $220 for the Moon Plus. So actually quite a big difference. It's nearer to the Blast. Is that being replaced with the Blast 2? I have to tell you, I don't know. I lost all contact with Tribit. I was supposed to be in close contact about the Blast 2. Something's gone all wrong. First of all, no, I won't get to that. But yeah, for me, if the Blast 2 replaces this, it's a huge mistake. And I even think people are now describing problems on these later model Blasts, whistling in the bass and all that I do not get. So I don't know. Again, we've seen that before, haven't we? Certain companies. the later models not quite up to the quality of the earlier models. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying I'm getting complaints now on the Blast that I wasn't getting before. I hope that's not telling us that that's about to be withdrawn. I don't think some of these companies have any idea what we're actually buying these speakers for. When it said so £110, $150, I'm just doing conversion. I don't know what the dollars will be on that. But it could be a little bit cheaper or significantly cheaper. We talked about the battery. Defaults to AAC. They're all Bluetooth 5.3. They all do stereo pairing. The Blast cannot do multiple speakers. The Blast still got mains. So you can see reasons why some of the hardware may be updated on that. It's still mains charging. The others two are USB-C charging. They all have auxiliary input. They all do power bank out at 10 watts. They all have lights. The Blast rated 90 watts. The Boom 2 Plus rated 140 watts or 100 watts. Depending on if you're on... Oh, that's the other thing. No bass button. That was a surprise to me. It's something that the masses absolutely love. No bass boost or cut, whatever you want to call that button, on there. What's that all about? Very strange, along with no multi-point support. Charges at 60 watts, obviously with supported chargers. That's brilliant. That's better than the 30 watts of the Boom 2 Plus. I'm not sure what the Blast charges at, but it's mains anyway. Talk about the weights. Yep, it will float. It's IP67, so it's dustproof and waterproof, 1 metre of water for 30 minutes, but it will float that way up. Float that way up. Oh, it's always so frustrating. It goes from being a party piece in the pool to being unusable in the pool when they do that. The drivers are 200mm woofers, 220mm tweeters, and that compares to the same size tweeters on the Boom 2 Plus, but with slightly bigger woofers on the Boom 2 Plus at 115mm compared to 107mm woofers and 25mm tweeters on the Blast. They all have two side passive radiators. There's no lag on the Blast in its auxiliary. I get 16 milliseconds, which is as fine as I can get down to. 16 milliseconds of lag or less on both the Boom 2 Plus and the Earfun Uboom. 66 milliseconds lag is pretty good for YouTube. 200 milliseconds in AAC. I never did test the SBC on this, but that's so in AAC on that, for me, unusable for using YouTube. So we've got the video mode. Without video mode, SBC 112 milliseconds, get away with 176 milliseconds of lip sync issues in AAC is unusable for me. You turn on video mode, well, that only brings it down to 128 milliseconds, still unusable for me in AAC mode, but it does bring it down to 48 milliseconds in SBC. So for me, to use on YouTube, it's only usable in SBC codec and video mode. Only the Boom 2 Plus has the sort of parametric equalizer, 9-band equalizer, 9-band equalizer, 10-band equalizer. It does have a 31-band thingy jig. It does push that region, but the actual peak of that, depending on how much you push that, the actual peak is further up. I think it's around the passive, isn't it? Around 50 or 60 hertz. But yeah, it does affect frequencies below that. So it will push. You have to really push that right up to start pushing that area. Put that down. Yeah, that's done that. That's done that. Done that. It's maybe less than an hour I've been sitting here, which is extraordinary. Did I miss anything else out? I know I didn't do my frequency. Why didn't you do frequency response? You always do that. I'll tell you 2 reasons. I found it inconsistent. Don't forget, that's one of the problems when they've got all these stereo processing going on. You've got phase issues and stuff like that. There's a big variance, but just moving a little bit. So you can do it one channel. The problem with doing it one channel driven is you're testing stereos. You're testing an all-in unit. You want to test how the drivers interact with each other. So if you're going to get peaks and nulls, a lot of that will be because of how close these are in this kind of speaker. You wouldn't get that in proper stereo. Bookshelves or floor standers when they're properly apart. It's a different type, but that's how you want to measure. It's not how you measure when you're designing speakers. Obviously, you're measuring each one and you're getting a frequency response. But in the speaker like that, it is important to measure everything driven. So you can obviously measure one channel driven. You don't get all those phasing issues and stuff. But for me, especially on this speaker as well, it doesn't tell you the whole story of the speaker. That's why I haven't done that. And I found it inconsistent. I still think doing real world tracks, when you're hitting limiters properly and stuff like that, and you're hitting dynamic EQ properly and all that, is the best way to test these speakers. But I will say, I did do frequency response measurements. It was kind of inconclusive in that even measuring the same way twice will give a slightly different result. So I didn't want to use that, especially as 37 EQs. This whole thing has been overwhelming for me. I dread to think what it's like for someone who doesn't watch YouTube and then buys a speaker for the first time. It's crazy the way they've set this up. And yeah, probably, is that the first time I didn't use measurements? So it didn't tally with some of my real world recordings, and I just moving about. There is an issue. So even the crossover, clearly the woofer drops off at 3 kilohertz. When I'm doing near field, albeit I'm doing it through the grill, that tweeter is not fully kicking in until 8 kilohertz. There's issues around that, and I can see that even in the real world recordings. There's issues in that area, but it's hard to get what's a real peak and null when it's doing stereo processing and stuff like that. So what else was there? Yep, I think that's it. So there's the problem. Lots of inconsistent. All I need to say is it's good value. I think that's good value and should get better with firmware updates. It's well usable in indoor plus most of the time and outdoor mode for me. If you're not someone who's into hi-fi and you're just into a cheap boombox, that's probably all you need. And when I'm listening close up and I'm just listening at low volumes, I've been going down to indoor and studio mode, and that's working as well. So you can use it in this speaker in many ways. Whereas some of these speakers are unusable for me always, like the Boom 2 Plus. But every speaker, someone will say they like it, they don't like it, and that's what audio is all about. It's about your taste. So there you go. I don't know. Will I get stalked again? Probably not. Do you know why? I don't know. I've got more subscribers, but a lot less views. I'm getting a lot less views. Sound like you're moaning now. I know. I'm just observing. But anyway, I'm getting kind of bored with the speakers. It's just never ending. It's never ending, and not only is there's always another one and another one, but there's so many. And why haven't you reviewed that? Why haven't you reviewed that? It's just, and then you're supposed to keep up with the firmwares. So it was a lot easier when I started. I had like 10 speakers, and I just kept up with the firmwares and all that. But now, and it's just, and you don't get so much time now to spend with each speaker and get to know it quite that well. I've got two booms. I've never paired them together. There was always something else I need to do. So just remember, I'm not a full-time reviewer. I suppose I'm a reviewer, but I do this in a few hours I get per week spare to enjoy myself. That's how sad I am. This is actually my enjoyment. Anyway, so yeah, that's been it. I would say, do you watch Carwell? So, is it a shortlist? Is it a buy? Is it forget? It's a shortlist. I thank you for watching, and I hope you're one of the few that watches me again. And Mr. Piston, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Comes from China. China.
This speaker's got deep bass, balanced mix with a bright high.
Yours, mine sounds exactly the same.